I like that analogy that you use all the time. Like, winning is a game of inches. Maybe talk about the analogy you shared this morning about the last Oilers game that we saw.
The life is a game of inches, right?
Yeah.
It was the play where Matthew Tkachuk, the Oilers dumped it down towards the empty net, and Matthew Tkachuk, like, love him or hate him, like, the guy made one of the best plays I've ever seen in professional sports, where he dove and knocked that puck off the goal line, like just a complete all-out effort. And meanwhile his defense, Oliver Ekman-Larsson, the defenseman, totally gave up on the play. Like, he just assumed that puck was going in. So Tkachuk, he knocks it off the goal line in one of the most spectacular plays, and Connor McDavid just picks it up, and meanwhile, Oliver Ekman-Larsson looks like he's curling off to go to the skate to the bench, and McDavid just buries it into the empty net.
Yeah.
And before then, Oliver Ekman-Larsson had played a good game. The guy scored a goal, and, but he played 59 minutes and 40 seconds of a 60-minute game, and everyone's only going to remember that last 20 seconds. and so, like, a lot of life is like that, right? It's like, how do we get that extra $100 a month to invest? It's like the differences are kind of on the margins sometimes, both in business and investing and kind of life in general, right? Yeah. It's that last 1% of effort sometimes makes all the difference, because ultimately it's like, either did you start that $100 a month in investing, right? Because tying it back to what we're doing is real estate. It's like, if you understand how to make money from your money, now you can start to actually evaluate, should I take this debt on and invest it? Mm-hmm. But if they've only ever invested in an underperforming mutual from the bank, and I see this all the time. People got $100,000 in a mutual fund, and I come back 2 or 3 years later, and the market's done well, and it's worth 102. It's like, it hasn't even kept up with inflation, and there's the market goes down sometimes, and that's not the bank's fault. But when the market's doing good, and you're getting like a 1% return on your investments, like, it's just like, of course they're never going to consider it. They'll just pay off the debt, right? Because they never actually were exposed to anything where they can get a higher rate of return consistently. And I would say there's sectors that we talk about in the TSX at our bootcamp where it's like, consistently they've gotten 10%. Mm-hmm. Consistently.
Yeah.
And when I show people the names of the companies that have done it, like, not for a year or 5 years, for decades, they've gotten a consistent rate of return. I like to call them the government-controlled monopolies.
Yes.
Right? The government-protected monopolies, right?
Yeah.
And so we start looking at that. It's like, people are always using money to invest. And like I said, we've normalized mortgage debt. And somehow we've normalized car loans, which are always a money loser.
Man, I hate car loans. I absolutely despise car loans, because most cars aren't worth it. They're just, the value of that car, that vehicle, that truck just doesn't fit to me. The value isn't there, especially nowadays. You're looking at $60,000, $70,000, $80,000, $100,000 for a run-of-the-mill type of vehicle that everybody would need to use, right?
Yeah.
Back when I was, growing up in the 80s, think 100,000, 200,000, that's like a Lambo, that's a Rolls Royce, right? And here you're buying a pickup.
Yeah.
Like, it just doesn't compute in my brain as to why is that so? But anyway, hate car loans because they're a big waste of money, high interest. They don't provide value.
Yeah, and someone would say they have no problem taking on a car loan, but the minute you say it's like, okay, we can borrow money off a HELOC to invest, that's evil.
Right.
It's like, no, just stay out of that car loan, right? Mm-hmm. And if we start to understand what's possible, and this one resonated with a lot of people, and we saw, sometimes you post something that's interesting to me, but it's like, 277 people like this post, right? And you could just kind of see it, right? I think this is the unfortunate truth is the average Canadian today cannot afford a new car.
No, but they keep giving them loans.
The banks will lend you the money. That doesn't mean it's a good idea, right? And so when the bank tells you that, one type of debt is healthy and one that's not. It's like I question the bank's motivations because they give car loans away like candy. The conventional wisdom is like, hey, get your mortgage done first and get your car loan second, because and they'll give car loans away. Like it's almost criminal. Like, people just winding negative equity into cars, and the banks just are complicit into it all the time, right? And this is where people get the unhealthy relationship with debt. It's like, I'm going to take on this mortgage and it's going to bury me. It's like, it's probably the car loan that did it.
Or car loans.
Yes, or car loans. Two cars in a household, and they're both on loans, and the loans are wildly more than the investment accounts altogether, right? That's a problem. Okay, so then we get to the rental prices by cities. It's like, just like we can make money off stocks, we can make money off rental real estate. And we should understand what this is. And so we organize this chart every single month based on, where the highest rents are. Vancouver.
Of course.
Always number one. Yet to be.
Some of the highest real estate prices in the world.
In the world, right? And, people rag on Vancouver. It's like, but I don't know. I like Vancouver. We know we have an office there because I like going to Vancouver. That's why we have an office in Vancouver, and I own real estate in Vancouver, even though our head office is in Edmonton. And it's expensive, but it's a world-class city too. For someone who's traveled, it's legitimately a world-class city. There's not many other walkable places like that in North America.
Yeah, some of the largest homeless encampments, right in East Hastings there, just like other large cities in the world.
They're very good at, I don't know if this is politically correct, but they're very good at migrating the homeless population to a very concentrated part of town. So you can walk around, Cole Harbour, where our office is, and it's pretty darn good. But if you wander too far in the other direction, and that's different than Edmonton. You do that in Edmonton, and it's like, they're kind of like, the homeless population is all around.
All over the place.
We're not very good at corralling them, so I'm not sure which one has more per capita. Maybe Vancouver has more per capita, but they're better at consolidating them into one location. So for better or worse, I'm not sure it's solving the issue, but the nice neighborhoods are still pretty nice there.
Yeah, for sure. It is by far one of the most beautiful places in Canada to go visit, for sure.
Yeah. Burnaby, just a stone's throw away. We're still really talking about the greater Vancouver area, and then we get into Toronto. But we're looking at this. It's like $2,600 for a 1-bedroom and $3,600 for a 2-bedroom, right? And I think if you're in those cities, that's a real tough place to start. Mm-hmm. If you're making a median income. So if you're making a median income, $30 an hour, we post those wage stats every month, right? So someone making a median income of $60,000 a year.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I question why you're living in these places. That's why? If you're on the brink of getting a massive pay raise, maybe that's one thing, right? If you're in some really cool program, articling position, you're just a year or two away from getting a big raise.
Sure.
I get it, but if you're making $60,000, you're hoping you're going to get a 2 to 5% raise next year, and there's nothing else beyond that. It's man, I don't know why you're in a place where the rent is that high.
Yeah, there are much more affordable places in Canada. You can go to Alberta, which is quickly going up there, especially Calgary is pretty expensive at this point, but there's Saskatchewan, there's Manitoba. Those places you can get very reasonable rents, which we'll probably see in this slide here.
Yeah, so we see the pullback a bit in Vancouver, but it's still, it's still really high. Toronto, yeah, we're starting to see the pullback in rents in these locations, but that's not all across the country. And I think people, sometimes they just look in their own reason. When you get out west, you're going to see a lot more green on the sheet here. Interesting that Victoria was still very, very resilient, right?
Yeah,
it's such a small market that it's a very niche place, right? So supply is forget about supply being constrained in a Toronto or Vancouver. It's supply is really constrained in a place like Victoria, right?